Shut up, compressor. Hey everyone, Matt here with Duke's Models, and welcome to the Pony Bash. Hey everyone, it's time for Pony Bash 4. And at this point, the Eduard Stang is in pretty good shape and just about ready to start getting actual paint. I was sidetracked for a while filling the wing lines, which was a fun exercise. Basically, real fast. It involved taking some 3M super red putty and basically putting it in the various lines that need to be filled, sanding that back, putting some more in, sanding that back, then priming with Stynylrez Res, because Stynylrez Res does not make lacquer putties react and shrink the way that lacquer-based primers can. So putting that on just to make sure, sanding it back again, doing a little bit more filling, sanding that back again, a little bit more Stynylrez Res. Finally, when everything started looking pretty good, grabbing some Mr. Surfacer 1000, this stuff, and laying down a nice heavy coat in the areas that were filled, sanding that back. And if you've never had the pleasure of sanding Mr. Surfacer 1000 with a nice high grit sanding sponge, holy shit, it is a pleasure. It goes from being pretty damn good to being super smooth, great at filling things like maybe the last vestiges of wings that you're trying to fill and all that kind of shit. And then just to finally make sure that I wasn't missing anything, another coat of Stynylrez Res on top of it. So there's a lot of primer on these wings so far, but it doesn't really matter because they're all going to be one color anyway. And for the scheme I'm doing, some of the photos very clearly show this panel line and this panel line in existence. And so I decided to go ahead and leave them on this as well. Underside, same story, filling all these. I did have to use CA in a couple small, stubborn spots. Shouldn't be a big deal though. I still have to come in here and do some cleanup on the tail area and right up here on the radiator, the radiator intake. So a little bit more work to go before it's ready to be painted, but it's coming along. Don't know if I'm gonna make that October 1st deadline though. Now, what I really want to do in this session is play around with Paint Mule. So this is the Meng P-51 that I decided to walk away from, and it is finding new life as my little test subject. So basically, I threw some Stynylrez Res on this, hit it with some 1000 grit Tamiya sanding sponge, which smoothed it out nicely. Then just threw some aqua gloss on it. Nothing fancy about this. And I'm happy that it is shinier on the fuselage. Still not, it's not GX2, but it's not bad. But it's shinier there than on the wings, which is fine because the wings are not going to get some sort of super high shine metallic. They are going to get silver paint because the wings were painted in DuPont silver. And for that, my main contender to duplicate that effect is Tamiya LP11. Now, one thing about LP11 is I've typically sprayed it with Mr. Leveling Thinner, and it works very well with Mr. Leveling Thinner. Has a certain creaminess to it that's really hard to quantify. But Tony Bell over in Skill Models Critique Group is going on about how amazingly well it sprays with Mr. Rapid Thinner. So I thought, hey, we've got two wings. I've got two little mixing cups. Let's do a competition. So let's do the port wing in the LP11 with the Mr. Leveling Thinner. I need to clean this thing. So there is a silver wing. Now apparently what's supposed to happen here is the metallic particles are supposed to lay down better or more organized or something like that with the Mr. Rapid Thinner. They don't have a chance to kind of swirl around and do whatever like they would with Mr. Leveling Thinner. I'm not seeing much difference, to be honest. Kind of let those settle up for a minute and see what we think. So, looking at these, I have to say I do think that I think Tony called it. The Mr. Rapid Thinner, I mean, it's a very, very subtle difference between these two, right? Like, it's hard to see. I think the best way you can see it is kind of with the specularity and the definition of the overhead lights in the reflection that you're getting here, where you can see them just a little bit better in this one, so it's got a little bit of a kick up to the shine that's going on. It definitely seems overall smoother and like it laid out a bit finer. So, cool. And different angles. One nice thing about LP11 and why I use it as a chipping base a lot is with a lot of metallics, even if you just flood the damn thing with the metallics, when you go to an angle like this, the wing turns black. And this LP11 doesn't. It holds its own. So for chipping purposes, that's fantastic because you don't have these weird black looking spots. It's all nice and bright. But it's also pretty damn good color for just silver lacquer paint. This one's wings, when the time comes, I'm going to be going with LP11 with the Mr. Rapid Thinner. That seemed to work really well. That'll probably work even better on a wing that isn't just festooned with random rivets the way that the Meng kit is. Okay, so the Meng P-51 Mule is continuing its journey of experimentation. So after the testing of LP11 on the wing surfaces with, again, MRT over here, and Mr. Leveling Thinner on this side with Mr. Rapid Thinner narrowly beating it out, I decided to go ahead and expand testing into the actual bare metal on the fuselage. Now, this came about due to some discussion on Scale Modeler's Critique Group about the idea of essentially trying to curve the shot with bare metal by applying something other than a gloss black finish underneath. And so there, I basically came in here and laid down several different grays. We have neutral gray, which, let me get a pointy thing, which was laid in right here, basically underneath the stainless steel band around the exhaust manifolds and kind of up under the nose here, ending at this square thing which kind of stays black. Then there was black, which I put down basically right underneath the radio equipment in here to restore some of the black lost when I sprayed the LP11. AMT12, one of my favorite dark grays, kind of living back in here and up on top of the cowl right here. And finally, modern Italian sky gray, which is a nice dirty warm gray, relatively light. And so it lives on basically this trapezoid here, kind of between the cut line at the cowl and these rivets. And honestly, with this K-Colors 60, I see like no difference. I mean, maybe in the Italian gray, it's a little bit lighter, but it also seems to lose some of that reflectivity that it's got going on. And everything else seems about equally bright. Like, I noticed no difference between the neutral gray portion here and the portion right on top of it up into the cowl. I noticed nothing back here between the AMT12 and the black that's up here. I mean, it's so close that, again, something I've experienced with K-Colors as opposed to, say, all-clad, is this stuff doesn't fuck around with translucency. It's just reflective as shit. So if it gets darker, if it gets lighter, it's all about what it's reflecting. If it's reflecting the light, it's white. If it's reflecting out towards the garage door and me in a dark shirt, it gets dark. If it's up against my hand here, it gets flesh colored. That's just the way it goes. So, it's one of those, unlike a lot of all-clad paints or very similar high-shine metallics, when you kind of turn it at an angle, it all of a sudden turns black. This stuff doesn't do that. That's one of the reasons I love K-Colors so much. That and it's like I can have a shitty finish and it can still give me something usable. On the other side, I decided to play around with Guns' new reformulated Super Metallic 2, Super Fine Silver 2. They're all about the 2s. It's also SM201. Thinned it with some Mr. Rapid Thinner, and it sprayed like fucking oatmeal. Just all over the damn place. Fuck these goddamn ailerons. They make it hard to hold. Anyway, sprayed thick. It went down okay-ish. Like if you look at, say, the bottom of the cowl here, that's kind of what it naturally went down as. I actually came back over it because I had some K colors left in the cup, and sprayed aft here just to see what would happen putting K colors over sort of like an okay metallic. And as you can see, you know, track the specularity of the lights up above and the reflection, and it's like back here, it's very tight, right? Like, look at that. And then you come up here, and it's all dull. So, I actually think this Super Metallic might be a good choice for something like, say, an overall silver lacquered F-51 from the Korean War, where maybe something like LP11 doesn't have enough personality to carry across the entire surface. Something like this does. So that's something that I might consider down the line. But yeah, the K colors definitely kicks it up a notch. I still think this side is much better, but either way, metallics. This band here, this is actually fun. So I decided I would do some spray testing to see if I could get that stainless steel band looking all good, right? And my original plan was going to try some of this K Colors Oxide Black, which just did not work. It looks blue in the bottle, but you put it down and it turns like this piss yellow color. So wiped that off. Came in with, again, I was going to take some of the K Colors 60 Steel and mix a little bit of black into it or something. And then I realized, wait, I've got this Chrome 63 Dark, which is noticeably darker. So I figured I'll give that a shot and spray it. And look at how gorgeous that is. And I think it's reacting to maybe some of the black oxide that didn't quite get wiped off, but fuck, that is beautiful. That is exactly the tone I was looking for. So I've got my recipe for the stainless steel band for sure. And over here, I mean, this thing is just looking hot as shit. And the coolest thing about K Colors is you can mask over it, and you can seal it with their clear just a little bit, and it still maintains its metallic sheen. So if you mask over it just bare like this, you're going to lift a little bit. It's going to do that kind of thing where it sort of dusts the tape a little bit, and you might see where you actually taped. But if you spray it carefully with a light coat of their gloss, it'll maintain this sheen. So, bonus. Anyway, that is my plan for the metallics on this thing. Now that I've done my excrements, I can move on. Okay, so now let's talk about the Eduard P-51, which is pretty much ready to go. Now, I noticed a couple of kind of goobers in some of the paint on the upper surfaces of the wings, and then on the lower surfaces where it was sitting on the flight pose stand. For some reason, right here, it just turned to like trash. It almost looked like I had spilled to me extra thin on it or something, but it sanded right out, so I don't know. But I was getting all huffy about having to go in here and redo all the GX2 and all that stuff. And then I remembered this thing has invasion stripes. And invasion stripes run right there, so none of this really matters. Which means we can kind of keep going undeterred, right? So everything else is pretty much good to go. And it's just about time to start shooting some shit at this aircraft.